The week before my divorce papers were signed, I learned my daughter-in-law, Lila, had been sleeping with my husband. I kept my composure, acting as if I knew nothing. At the lawyer's office, when they slid a document across the table stripping me of my rights, I smiled. What I did next left the room stunned. I'm thrilled you're here to follow my story. Stick with me until the end, and let me know the city you're reading from. I'd love to see how far this tale travels. The late afternoon sun streamed through the delicate lace curtains of my dining room as I arranged the heirloom china for lunch. Clara, my daughter-in-law Lila's older sister, had called earlier, her voice taut with strain, asking for a private conversation. Her tone sent a shiver through me, but I brushed it aside. Clara and I had always been polite but distant, never sharing the closeness I'd hoped for. At 64, I clung to the rituals that anchored me, ironing the same cream linen tablecloth used for family gatherings over 3 decades. The house felt hollow lately, echoing with my solitude. My husband, Robert, married to me for 42 years, had grown elusive, always buried in work or retreating to his study. Our son, Ethan, 35, was consumed by his marriage to Lila, his visits rare and fleeting. The doorbell rang, sharp and clear. Clara stood on the porch, clutching her purse like a lifeline, her face pale, her usually flawless makeup smudged as if tears had betrayed her. "Eleanor, thank you for having me," she murmured, her voice fragile. "Of course, come in," I said, guiding her to the dining room. Her hands shook as she set her purse down. "I made those cucumber sandwiches you love and the lemon chiffon cake you raved about last Easter." She offered a faint smile, but ignored the food, her hands clasped tightly, knuckles blanching. "Clara, what's wrong? You look shaken." Her green eyes met mine, raw with pain, guilt, and a fierce, desperate love. "Eleanor, I have to tell you something, and I'm terrified it'll ruin everything." My heart thudded, but I kept my voice steady. "Whatever it is, we'll face it together." Clara exhaled shakily, tears brimming. "It's about Lila and Robert." The room tilted, but I anchored myself, hands folded calmly in my lap. "What about them?" "They're having an affair." The words spilled out, rushed and heavy, as if they'd been caged too long. "I've known for weeks. I saw them at that cozy cafe by Robert's office, holding hands, kissing, like they were in love." A fracture ran through me, sharp as splintered ice, but I held my voice firm. "Are you sure?" Clara nodded, her face crumpling. "I confronted Lila. She laughed, said it was none of my business. But Eleanor, the things she said about you." Her voice broke. "What things?" I asked, dreading the answer. "She called you old. Dole said Robert deserved better. She said once the divorce was final, she'd ensure you got nothing. She's been scheming, Eleanor, married Ethan to get to the family, to the money. She's been manipulating Robert for months." The world spun, but I gripped the table's edge, steadying myself. 42 years of marriage, a son I'd raised with devotion, a daughter-in-law I'd embraced, all unraveling in a web of betrayal and greed. "Why tell me now?" I whispered. Clara reached for my hand, her smooth fingers clasping my weathered ones. "Because it's wrong. You've been nothing but kind to us. Ethan doesn't deserve a wife is deceitful. And I love my nephew too much to watch Lila destroy this family." I stared at our joined hands, mine etched with age, hers vibrant with youth. "Does Ethan know?" "No, and I don't know if I can tell him. It'd break him." I stood slowly, moving to the window overlooking the garden Robert and I had planted in our early years. The roses bloomed vividly, their crimson petals stark against the greenery. Everything looked serene, but beneath the surface, the roots were rotting. "What will you do, Eleanor?" Clara asked, her voice soft behind me. I turned, a cold resolve settling in my chest, replacing the raw sting of betrayal. For decades, I'd been the caretaker, the peacemaker, smoothing every rough edge in our family. But this wound couldn't be mended with kindness. "Nothing," I said, my voice calm as a still lake. Clara's eyes widened. "Nothing?" "I'll act as if this conversation never happened. I'll smile, play the loving wife and mother, and let them believe they're outsmarting me. But Clara, some games demand patience, and I've mastered patience over a lifetime." I sat, pouring tea with steady hands, the porcelain cup warm against my palms. "Does Lila know you're here?" "No. She thinks I'm at the office." "Good. Keep it that way." My gaze locked with hers, and something in my expression made her lean back slightly. "Can you do that, Clara? Can you pretend you never told me?" She nodded slowly. But what about Ethan? Your marriage? I sipped my tea, letting the ritual soothe my racing mind. Some battles aren't won with a frontal assault. Sometimes, you let your opponents think they've already triumphed. After Clara left, I lingered in the dining room, staring at the untouched lemon cake and sandwiches. The house felt altered, as if the walls themselves held their breath. Every framed photo on the mantel, smiling faces from vacations, holidays, milestones, now carried the weight of deception. That evening, Robert came home to the aroma of his favorite pot roast, a Thursday tradition for 40 years. "Smells great," he muttered, avoiding my eyes as he tugged at his tie. "Rough day at the Fern?" I asked, my tone light, as if I didn't suspect his lunch hour was spent with Lila. The usual. He vanished upstairs to change, and I set the table with mechanical precision. At dinner, we spoke of trivial things. Storm forecasts, a leaky faucet, while I studied him. The constant glances at his phone, the unfamiliar cedarwood cologne, the way his eyes slid past mine. 42 years, and I was only now seeing the man I married. That night, in our king-sized bed, I stared at the ceiling, resolve hardening. They wanted to play a game of betrayal. Fine. But they didn't know their opponent. Living with their secret was like walking barefoot on shattered glass. Every forced smile, every polite word sliced deeper, but I played my part flawlessly. The oblivious wife and mother, while cataloging their deceit. 3 days later, Lila swept into my kitchen for our usual Sunday dinner. Her designer dress clinging to her frame, blonde hair cascading in perfect waves. Her smile as polished and fake as a department store mannequin. "Eleanor, you look radiant," she gushed, wrapping me in a performative hug. "Those roses on the table are divine." I returned the embrace, noting the jasmine perfume that matched the scent on Robert's shirts. "Thank you, dear. Ethan's on his way. Wine while we wait?" "Lovely," she purred, perching at the kitchen island, legs crossed with practiced elegance. "Actually, I'd love a quick chat, just us girls." My pulse quickened, but my hands stayed steady as I poured the Chardonnay. "Of course. What's on your mind?" Lila sipped delicately, leaning in with a conspiratorial air. "I'm worried about you, Eleanor. You and Robert seem distant." The gall of it stole my breath. The woman dismantling my marriage, feigning concern. "Oh? Why's that?" "At family dinners, there's this tension." Her manicured hand covered mine, a mockery of empathy. "Marriage gets tough after so many years. The spark fades." I nodded, as if weighing her words. "You might be right, we've hit a rough patch." Her eyes gleamed with veiled triumph. "Have you thought about counseling? Or maybe, what would make you both happier long-term?" "You mean divorce?" I asked, voice neutral. She backtracked swiftly. "I didn't say that," but her excitement betrayed her. "I just think life's too short for an unfulfilling marriage. You deserve someone who truly sees you, Eleanor. You're still so vibrant." The irony was a chokehold, but I smiled, playing the naive wife. "That's kind of you." When Ethan arrived, Lila morphed into the doting wife, laughing too loudly at his stories, her hand lingering on his arm. But her eyes flicked to the doorway when Robert's car pulled in. He arrived 20 minutes late, blaming a crisis at the Peterson account. Lila's cheeks flushed as he kissed my cheek in greeting, their gazes locking a fraction too long across the table. "No worries," Ethan said, oblivious. "We were just talking about our vacation next month." "Oh? Where to?" Robert asked, his interest too keen. "Somewhere tropical," Lila said, her voice sultry. "A place to escape everything." Her glance at Robert when she said escape twisted my gut. But I sliced my roast with calm precision, my smile unwavering. "Sounds perfect. You two deserve it." After dinner, while Ethan and I cleared plates, Lila and Robert lingered at the table, their voices low, their conversation a private thread in the fabric of my unraveling life. I strained to overhear their whispered exchange. "We can't keep this up," Lila's voice, sharp with urgency. "Not much longer," Robert soothed. "She's onto something," Lila pressed, anxious. "She knows nothing," Robert said, his tone dismissive. They were wrong. I knew everything. Yet I hummed softly, loading the dishwasher, as if their betrayal didn't burn like acid in my veins. The next week, I met with a lawyer, not our family attorney, but Rachel Newen, a sharp divorce specialist in her 40s with piercing eyes and a no-nonsense demeanor. Her office, tucked in a sleek downtown high-rise, was far from Robert's usual circles, ensuring discretion. "Mrs. Harper," Rachel said, after I laid out the sordid details, "why haven't you confronted your husband about the affair?" I folded my hands, choosing my words with care. "I need to know my position, legally, financially, before I act. The house, our investments, the family legacy. I want clarity." Rachel nodded, impressed. "Smart. Let's review your assets." For an hour, we dissected everything. The house, bought 40 years ago with my family's inheritance. The investment portfolios, built through decades of discipline. The construction firm Robert inherited from his father. And, most crucially, the trust my grandfather established, encompassing the house and several rental properties. "This trust is remarkable," Rachel said, scanning the documents I'd brought. "Your grandfather was a visionary. It has strict provisions for inheritance and divorce." "What kind?" My pulse quickened. She read aloud. "In the event of a marriage dissolved due to adultery, the innocent party retains full rights to trust properties, and the offending party forfeits all claims to assets tied to the trust." I leaned back, a spark of hope igniting. "So if I prove Robert's affair, you'd keep the house, the properties, and related investments." Robert likely assumes a standard divorce splits everything evenly. He doesn't know about these protections. I left Rachel's office lighter, armed with knowledge. Robert and Lila thought they were playing chess, but they hadn't seen half the board. That evening, Robert's performance as the dutiful husband was faltering. He praised my cooking with hollow enthusiasm, asked about my day with forced curiosity, and kissed my forehead with lips that carried Lila's scent. But I saw the strain, guilt gnawing at him, arrogance convincing him he was untouchable. "Robert," I said as we prepared for bed, "Lila mentioned something about our marriage the other day." He stiffened, hanging his shirt with deliberate care. "What about it?" "Maybe she's right. Maybe we should explore our options." He turned, a flicker of excitement, or relief, in his eyes. "You mean divorce?" I shrugged, masking the ache in my chest. "Maybe it's time we chase what makes us happy." He nodded, struggling to look somber, while suppressing a smile. "If that's what you want, Eleanor, I just want your happiness." Liar. I mirrored his smile, playing my role in this cruel charade. "I want that for both of us." In bed, as Robert's steady breathing filled the silence, I thought of Lila's smug grin. Her designer dresses, the jasmine perfume she wore like a taunt. I pictured her hand on Ethan's shoulder, plotting her escape with his father. They thought they'd outmaneuvered me. They didn't know the game had just begun. The law offices of Baxter and Associates loomed on the top floor of a glass tower, all polished marble and dark wood, designed to intimidate. I sat calmly in the reception area, hands folded, while Robert paced by the floor-to-ceiling windows, checking his phone obsessively. He'd been irritable all morning, grumbling about breakfast and eager to get this over with. Lila had insisted on joining, claiming she wanted to support Ethan through this family ordeal. She sat beside him now, her hand possessive on his thigh, whispering comforts. Ethan looked hollow, believing this divorce was a mutual, amicable end to a fated marriage. If only he knew. "Mr. and Mrs. Harper," said a silver-haired man in a tailored suit, striding toward us. "I'm Thomas Baxter. Thank you for coming." Robert had chosen Baxter, boasting he was the city's best divorce attorney, a friend from their golf club, I'd learned through my own digging. We entered a conference room, dominated by a massive oak table and leather chairs. Baxter took the head, spreading documents with practiced ease. Robert sat to his right. I took the opposite side, and Ethan and Lila settled at the far end, close enough to watch, but distanced from the main event. "Before we start," Baxter said, his voice smooth with authority, "I want to ensure everyone agrees this is an amicable dissolution, handled with fairness and dignity." I nodded, my smile serene, my strategy concealed. "Of course, that's what we both want," I said, my voice steady and agreeable. Robert glanced at me, his brow furrowing slightly, as if my compliance caught him off guard. He'd braced for a fight. Tears, accusations, resistance. Instead, my calm acceptance seemed to unnerve him. "Excellent," Thomas Baxter said, sliding a thick folder across the polished table. "Let's review the proposed settlement. We've aimed to divide the marital assets fairly, considering the marriage's duration and both parties' contributions. I opened the folder, scanning the pages with a neutral expression, though the words ignited a quiet fury within me. Baxter's proposal offered me a modest downtown condo we'd bought as an investment 15 years ago. Half our joint savings, and a meager alimony payment. Robert would keep the family home, the construction firm, our vacation properties, and the bulk of our investment portfolio. This seems heavily skewed, I said mildly, not lifting my eyes from the documents. Baxter cleared his throat, his tone patronizing. I understand your concern, Mrs. Harper, but we must be realistic. Your husband has been the primary earner, and the business requires stable leadership. The house carries significant upkeep costs, which could be challenging on a reduced income. Translation: they saw me as too old, too frail, too naive to claim what was mine. There's also an issue with the house, Baxter continued, his voice dripping with condescension. There appear to be irregularities in the original deed and trust documentation. Until resolved, it's best to leave the property in Mr. Harper's name to avoid legal entanglements. I nearly laughed at the brazen lie. They were trying to swindle me out of my family's home with fabricated legal hurdles. Lila sat taller, her eyes gleaming, likely imagining herself redecorating my master suite. I see, I said softly. And when might these irregularities be resolved? Baxter waved a hand dismissively. These matters, generational trusts, property transfers, can take years. It's simpler to keep things as they are. Robert leaned forward, adopting the patient tone he used to explain business deals to me, as if I were a child. Eleanor, I know this is tough, but Thomas is right. The condo is perfect for you, low maintenance, no headaches like property taxes or repairs. Manageable, as if I were incapable of handling my own life. I scanned the room. Baxter, smug in his legal maneuvering. Robert, feigning sympathy while barely concealing his eagerness. Lila, radiating triumph as she pictured herself as the new lady of my home. And Ethan, my son, looking uneasy but trusting this was a fair process. Well, I said, closing the folder with a deliberate snap. You seem to have everything figured out. Baxter's smile was self-assured, believing he'd won. We've been thorough. Of course, you're welcome to have your own attorney review this, but it's standard for a case like this. A case like this, a loyal wife of 42 years discarded for her son's wife. That won't be necessary, I said, taking the pen Baxter offered. Where do I sign? The room stilled. Even Lila looked startled by my swift surrender. Are you sure, Mom? Ethan asked, his voice wavering. Maybe you should sleep on it. I turned to my son, his kind eyes reflecting the values I'd instilled in him. Honesty, fairness. Sweetheart, sometimes you have to know when to fight and when to accept what's coming. Your father and I had a good run, but it's time for new chapters. Robert frowned, clearly rattled by my lack of resistance. He'd prepared for a battle, rehearsed justifications for his greed. My compliance unnerved him. Sign here, Baxter said, pointing to the final page, and here, and initial there. I signed with deliberate precision. Eleanor Grace Harper, the same signature from our marriage certificate 42 years ago, when I'd believed in love everlasting. There, I said, setting the pen down and meeting Robert's gaze. I hope this gives you everything you want. A shadow crossed his eyes. Guilt, perhaps, or a fleeting awareness of what he was shattering. But it vanished, replaced by the smug satisfaction of a man who thought he'd outwitted his wife. Lila couldn't contain her excitement, squeezing Ethan's hand. I'm so proud of how maturely you're both handling this, she said, her voice dripping with false sincerity. It takes strength to put family first. Family first. The woman betraying her husband with his father dared lecture me on family. Thank you, dear, I said warmly. That means a lot. As Baxter gathered the signed documents, his satisfaction palpable, he said, I'll file these tomorrow. The divorce should be finalized within 60 days. 60 days until Robert thought he'd be free to marry Lila. 60 days until Lila envisioned herself in my home. 60 days until they learned the rules of this game weren't what they assumed. Outside, Ethan hugged me tightly, his eyes glistening. Mom, are you okay? You seem so calm. I smiled, brushing his cheek. I'm fine, sweetheart. Sometimes you have to let things unfold. I brushed Ethan's cheek, seeing in his features the echo of a younger Robert, back when his heart still held honor. I'm fine, sweetheart, I said softly. Everything will unfold as it's meant to. Lila appeared, sliding her arms around Ethan's waist with possessive ease. "Your mom's so strong, babe," she cooed, her voice dripping with false warmth. "She's going to be so much happier now." "I'm sure I will be," I replied, meeting her triumphant gaze with a calm smile. "We all will." As they walked away, Lila's excited chatter floated back. Plans to help me pack, suggestions for a cozy retirement community where I could make friends my age, promises of a simpler life for everyone. Standing in the shadow of the high-rise, watching Robert and Lila revel in their perceived victory, a cold satisfaction settled in my chest. They thought they'd outsmarted the aging wife who'd spent 42 years nurturing her family. They didn't know that in 60 days, when the divorce finalized and they reached for their prize, they'd find some legacies belong to bloodlines, not betrayers. I walked to my car with measured steps, already dialing Rachel Nguyen. There were documents to finalize, evidence to secure, and final moves to orchestrate in a chess game they didn't even know they were losing. The real battle was about to begin. 2 weeks later, I was pruning roses in the garden when tires crunched on the gravel drive. Ethan's car idled, but instead of his usual wave, he sat motionless, gripping the steering wheel like it was his only anchor. When he stepped out, my son looked broken, his crisp shirt wrinkled, hair disheveled, eyes hollow with devastation. "Ethan," I called, setting down my shears and hurrying to him. "What's wrong?" He stared at me, mouth working soundlessly, then collapsed onto the porch steps, a puppet with severed strings. "She's been lying," he whispered, voice raw. "All this time, Lila's been lying." I sat beside him, torn between comforting him and demanding details to confirm what I'd known for weeks. Instead, I waited, letting him find his truth. "I found texts," he said, staring at his hands. "Hundreds, between Lila and Dad. They've been planning this for months." My heart ached for him, but I kept my voice steady. "Planning what?" He let out a bitter laugh, so unlike his gentle nature. "The divorce, the affair. They thought they were clever, waiting until you signed the papers to run off together. Lila was bragging to someone about manipulating you both." The words stung, though I'd braced for them. Hearing Ethan's pain made their betrayal visceral. "How did you find out?" "Clara called," he said, his voice thick with gratitude and grief. "She couldn't stay silent anymore. Told me where to look. I thought she was wrong, but I checked Lila's phone while she was showering." He trailed off, unable to finish. I could imagine the messages, gleeful plans, cruel jests at our expense. "Clara tried to warn Lila," Ethan continued, "begged her to stop. Lila laughed, said she'd worked too hard to get our family's money to back out now. Money, not love, not connection, just cold, calculated greed." "Where's Lila now?" I asked. "I confronted her this morning, showed her the texts." Ethan swiped at his eyes. "She didn't even deny it. Shrugged, said I was naive to think she loved me. Said Dad could give her things I never could. The cruelty stole my breath. To dismiss years of devotion, to mock a man who'd cherished her. I threw her out," Ethan said, his voice firming. "Gave her an hour to pack. She laughed, said it didn't matter. She'd soon live somewhere much grander. My family home, her imagined prize." "I'm so sorry, sweetheart," I said, resting a hand on his shoulder. "You didn't deserve this." He looked at me, eyes brimming. "How are you so calm? Dad betrayed you two, threw away 42 years for her." I studied my son, raised to believe in loyalty, and decided he deserved the truth. "Ethan, there's something you need to know about the divorce, about what happened in that lawyer's office." Over the next hour, I revealed everything. Clara's warning, my weeks of silent observation, Rachel Nguyen's counsel, and the trust's ironclad provisions Robert and Lila didn't suspect. Ethan listened, stunned, as I described playing the naive wife while building my case. "You knew," he whispered. "All along, you knew." "I did," I said. "And I let them think they'd won. Sometimes, the best move is letting your enemies expose themselves before you strike." Ethan stared, seeing me anew. "Mom, I never realized how strategic you are." I smiled, bittersweet. 42 years of marriage teaches you when to fight and when to wait, sweetheart. What happens when Dad learns about the trust? That's up to him and Lila, I said, my voice steady. They'll find out soon enough. I stood, brushing soil from my gardening apron. They made their choices, Ethan. Now they face the consequences. He rose, a flicker of his old resilience returning. What about us? Lila's my wife, or was. I can't just act like this didn't happen. You don't have to, I said firmly. You're the innocent one here. You have every right to protect yourself. As if on cue, tires crunched on the gravel. Clara emerged from her car, her face etched with worry as she hurried toward us. Ethan? I'm so sorry, she said, voice thick with guilt. This is my fault. If I hadn't told you to look, you saved me, Ethan cut in, his tone resolute. Without you, I'd have wasted years on a lie. You gave me the truth. Clara's eyes brimmed with tears. I should have spoken sooner. I should have protected you better. I watched them, struck by Clara's genuine remorse against Lila's calculated deceit. Where Lila wielded sharp ambition, Clara radiated sincerity. Her concern for Ethan, selfless even in her pain. Clara, I said gently, you did the right thing. Choosing honesty over silence took courage. She looked at me, gratitude softening her expression. I was so afraid you'd hate me for dragging this one to your family. You didn't drag anything in, I said. You exposed what was already rotting. Now we can face it openly. Ethan stepped closer to Clara, his hand hovering near her shoulder, hesitant but longing to comfort. Clara, I'm grateful, not just for the warning, but for your honesty when silence would have been easier. Their eyes met, charged with a fragile connection, not love, not yet, but a shared recognition of wounds and values, a seed of something real amid the wreckage. I should go, Clara said abruptly, as if aware she was intruding. You need time to process. Stay for dinner, Ethan said quickly. Mom's pot roast is legendary, and you could use some normalcy. Clara glanced at me, and I nodded warmly. I'd love for you to stay. It's been too long since we've had honest voices at our table. As we walked to the house, the air felt lighter, the toxic haze over our family beginning to dissipate. Lila's betrayal had shattered us, but it had also revealed true character. Ethan was stronger than I'd realized, capable of facing painful truths. Clara was everything her sister wasn't. Loyal, selfless, true. And I had rediscovered my own resolve, my ability to strategize and fight for what mattered. That evening, over pot roast and stories, I watched Ethan and Clara. Their tentative connection felt like a balm, proof that betrayal didn't have to define us. Lila always called me too soft, Clara said quietly, clearing dishes. Said nice people finish last. Ethan paused, meeting her gaze. I used to think being good was enough, that trust and kindness would be returned. Now I know you can be decent, but not naive. You trust those who earn it. I nodded, proud. The heart learns, Ethan, and when it heals, it sees clearly. As Clara prepared to leave, Ethan walked her to her car. Through the kitchen window, I saw their quiet, earnest conversation, a spark of something new. She's remarkable, Ethan said when he returned. She is, I agreed. Nothing like her sister. He nodded thoughtfully. You said to let people show who they are. Lila did, and I was blind. But Clara's been showing me too. And I almost missed it. The heart heals, I said, and sees better for it. That night, in the house soon to be mine again, I felt hope stir. Lila's betrayal had exposed our family's strength, stripping away illusions to reveal what was worth keeping. Tomorrow, I'd call Rachel Nguyen to finalize my plan. But tonight, I savored this newfound clarity. 63 days after signing the divorce papers, I sat on the porch, coffee in hand, watching the sunrise paint the sky gold. My phone buzzed, Robert's name on the screen. For the first time in months, I felt a flicker of amusement as I answered. Hello, Robert. What the hell did you do? His voice was raw with panic, all pretense gone. I sipped my coffee, unhurried. Good morning, I'm well, thanks for asking. Lovely weather today. Don't play games, Eleanor, he snapped. My lawyer called. There's a problem with the house, a trust no one mentioned. Oh, that, I said lightly. Quite a surprise, I bet. Silence stretched. Then his voice dropped, dangerous. You knew. You knew about this trust all along, didn't you? Of course, I said. It's my family's trust, Robert. My grandfather designed it to protect our legacy from exactly this. A husband betraying his wife with her son's wife. His sharp intake of breath betrayed his shock. I'd played the wounded wife so well, he hadn't seen the strategist. How long have you known? Long enough, I said. Long enough to document your affair, to protect what's mine, to watch you and Lila plan your future in my home. Our home, he corrected, but his voice lacked conviction. No, Robert, never ours. The trust holds the deed. You lived here as my husband, but you own nothing, not a single brick. And by choosing adultery, you forfeited any claim. A long pause. Then, in a voice small and broken, "Where am I supposed to go?" The question almost stirred pity. Almost. "You and Lila will figure it out. You're both so clever after all." "Eleanor, please. I made mistakes, but—" "Mistakes," I cut in, my tone sharp. "You made choices, Robert. Now live with them." I cut Robert off, my voice sharp with finality. "Mistakes are forgetting groceries or missing a date. You chose to betray everything we built. You seduced our son's wife and plotted to steal my inheritance. That's not a mistake, Robert. That's who you are." A woman's shrill voice, Lila's no doubt, cut through the background, demanding answers. "I have to go," Robert muttered, defeated. "This isn't over." "It is," I said calmly. "You just haven't realized it." I hung up and savored my coffee in serene silence. The phone buzzed again, Robert, then an unknown number, likely Lila, but I ignored them. I had nothing left to say. An hour later, Ethan's car rolled into the driveway. He stepped out, grim but resolute, with Clara at his side, clutching a manila folder. "Mom, we need to talk," he said, striding up the porch steps. "Come sit," I said, gesturing to the chairs. Ethan took the seat across from me, Clara beside him. Their closeness, a testament to the bond forged in shared betrayal. "Clara's been helping me sort through Lila's things," Ethan began. "We found documents you need to see." Clara opened the folder, revealing a stack of papers. These were hidden in a lockbox in Lila's closet. They show how long this was planned. The first was my grandfather's will, annotated in Lila's sharp handwriting with notes on property values and inheritance laws. The second, a chilling timeline detailing her seduction of Robert, the divorce's initiation, and their plan to claim the house. But the third document froze my blood. A life insurance policy on me, taken out by Lila 6 months ago, naming herself beneficiary. "She forged your signature," Clara said softly. "I checked with the insurance company. They have no record of your consent." Ethan's face was ashen with rage. "She wasn't just after your money, Mom. She was—" He couldn't finish. I stared at the policy, a chill settling over me. The woman I'd welcomed as family had plotted not just my financial ruin, but something far darker. "There's more," Clara said, producing a printed email from a private investigator Lila hired to probe our family's assets. The report was meticulous, detailing the trust's provisions, my routines, my medical history, even my friendships. Lila had stalked me like prey. "Ethan, take these to the police," I said, my voice steady despite the storm within. "The forged policy is a felony." "Already done," he replied. "I called Detective Alvarez this morning. He's investigating identity theft and insurance fraud." We sat in silence, grappling with Lila's calculated malice. She hadn't just betrayed us. She'd waged war on our family. "There's something else," Clara said hesitantly. Ethan squeezed her hand, encouraging her. "Lila's dangerous. This isn't her first scheme." She took a breath. "Our Aunt Margaret died 2 years ago, a sudden heart attack. Lila was managing her medications. It seemed normal at the time. Margaret had a heart condition, but Lila inherited her house and savings. She wasn't grieving. She was satisfied." The implication hung heavy. "Did you tell the police?" I asked. Clara nodded. "Detective Alvarez is reviewing Margaret's death. They might exhume her body if there's enough evidence." A car roared into the driveway, Robert's Mercedes, followed by a moving truck. Lila stormed out, her polished mask shattered, revealing the predator beneath. "I'll go inside," I said, standing. "Ethan, Clara, can you handle this? I can't face them without saying something I'll regret." From the living room window, I watched the confrontation. Lila screamed at Ethan, jabbing a finger at the house. Robert stood by the truck, shoulders slumped, defeated. Two movers hesitated, unsure whether to unload. "You're not welcome here," Ethan said, his voice steady and commanding. "Neither of you." "This is my house," Lila shrieked. "We signed papers." "No," Clara said, stepping beside Ethan. "It was never yours and it never will be." Lila's glare at her sister was venomous. "You did this. You turned them against me." You're jealous because I escaped our pathetic family while you're still nothing. I'd rather be nothing than you, Clara replied, unshaken. Lila lunged, but Ethan stepped between them, his presence halting her. They stood in a stark tableau. Ethan and Clara, united in integrity. Lila, isolated in her fury. Get off my property, Ethan said, his voice carrying newfound authority. You have 5 minutes, or I'm calling the police. Robert spoke, voice weary. Come on, Lila. It's over. But Lila spun toward the house, spotting me in the window. This isn't over, she screamed. I know secrets that could ruin you all. I opened the window slightly. The only secrets unraveling are yours, dear. Detective Alvarez is very interested in your Aunt Margaret. Lila paled, staggering. Robert grabbed her arm, pulling her to the truck with urgency. We're leaving, he called. As the truck and Mercedes sped away, a weight lifted from my chest. The invaders who'd threatened my legacy and worse were gone. Ethan and Clara returned inside, drained but triumphant. It's over, Ethan said, sinking into my favorite armchair. They're really gone. The house is ours, I corrected gently. But Lila still faces consequences for the forgery, the fraud, and possibly Margaret's death. Justice moves slowly, but it moves. Clara curled up on the couch, looking younger than her 30 years, her vulnerability stark. I keep thinking I should feel sorry for her. She's my sister, but I can't. She chose this path, step by step. You owe her nothing, I said. She made her choices. Now she lives with them. As evening settled, we prepared dinner together in the kitchen. It felt like a quiet celebration, not of victory, but of survival, integrity, and bonds that endured. Watching Ethan and Clara work side by side, I saw something blossoming. Not Lila's manipulative passion, but a connection rooted in mutual respect and shared scars. This house has seen so much, I said as we sat to eat. My grandmother raised her children here. My mother weathered hard times within these walls. I raised Ethan here, and one day I hope his children will run through that backyard. Ethan and Clara shared a glance, a silent promise of a future together. Tonight, I continued, raising my wine glass. We toast to this house staying with those who know what family truly means. The clink of glasses sealed our victory. Lila and Robert had tried to tear us apart, but they'd only revealed what was worth keeping. 6 months later, I stood in the kitchen, preparing Thanksgiving dinner. The same space where I'd endured Lila's false sympathy. Today, it brimmed with warmth and laughter. Ethan basted the turkey with the same focus he'd once shown learning to ride a bike. Clara, at the island, chopped vegetables, her new engagement ring glinting in the sunlight. Their engagement, announced a month ago, filled me with quiet joy. Mom, the sweet potato timer's going off, Ethan called, apron tied. Sleeves rolled up. I've got it, Clara said, moving with ease. Over the months, she'd woven herself into our home's rhythm. Cooking, gardening, sharing the small tasks that make a house alive. The doorbell chimed. Expecting the neighbors, I opened the door to find Detective Alvarez, his expression serious, but not heavy. Mrs. Harper, I hope I'm not intruding on your holiday. Not at all, Detective. Coffee? Join us for dinner? He declined, stepping into the living room. I wanted to update you before the holiday. Lila Thornton's been charged with insurance fraud, identity theft, and conspiracy to commit fraud. The DA's confident in convictions. And Margaret? Clara asked, appearing with Ethan, their faces taut. Alvarez's tone grew grave. The exhumation found digitalis in her system, levels suggesting intentional poisoning, not an accidental overdose. Clara's hand flew to her mouth. She really killed her. We're building a first-degree murder case, Alvarez said. Lila's fingerprints were on the medicine bottles, and she researched digitalis effects for weeks before Margaret's death. What about Robert? I asked. No evidence ties him to Margaret's death, but he's charged as an accessory to the fraud. His cooperation might lessen his sentence. After Alvarez left, we sat, absorbing the news. Justice was coming, but it felt bittersweet. Margaret was gone, Ethan's marriage shattered. My 42 years with Robert built on a lie. You okay, Mom? Ethan asked, noting my silence. I'm relieved, I said after a pause. Relieved Lila can't hurt anyone else, that Margaret will get justice, that we kept our integrity. Clara squeezed my hand. I keep thinking about the what-ifs. What if I hadn't spoken? What if you didn't know about the trust? What if Lila had won? She didn't, Ethan said firmly, and we're stronger for it. He was right. The past 6 months had forged us anew, more connected, more honest. The neighbors arrived, followed by Rachel Wynne and her husband, bonded over our shared love of gardening. The dining room filled with laughter, the kind no deception could fake. As we sat to eat, I stood, wineglass raised. This year has been the hardest of my life, I began, the room quieting. But it's shown me what matters: real family, true friends, people who love without agendas. To that, we give thanks. I paused, meeting each pair of eyes around the Thanksgiving table. I lost a marriage I thought would last forever. I faced betrayal from someone I loved. I learned our family was attacked from within. My voice steadied as I continued. But I also discovered my own strength. I saw my son choose integrity over vengeance. I learned that gifts often hide in losses. I looked at Clara, whose courage had sparked this reckoning. Family isn't just blood. It's those who stand with you when the world tries to break you, who choose truth over silence, loyalty over gain. Ethan stood, raising his glass. To Mom, who showed us grace under fire isn't just a phrase, it's a way of life. To Eleanor, Rachel Wynne added, who proved patience and strategy triumph over any foe. To new beginnings, Clara said softly, and families we choose as much as those we're born into. As glasses clinked, a sense of completion settled over me. Not an ending. Ethan and Clara would wed in the spring, grandchildren would come, life would unfold, but a clarity about who I was. Beyond Robert's wife or Ethan's mother, I was Eleanor Harper, guardian of my family's legacy, survivor of betrayal, architect of my future. After dinner, Rachel pulled me aside. What about the downtown condo from the settlement? I smiled. I'm turning it into a refuge for women rebuilding after divorce. A quiet space to find their next chapter. Nothing grand, just safe. Rachel nodded. Lila thought she was stealing from you. Instead, her greed gave you a way to help others. Ironic. Later, alone, I walked through the house, performing my nightly ritual of checking locks and lights. Once routine, it now felt sacred, a reclaiming of my sanctuary. In my bedroom, I opened my jewelry box, bypassing my mother's pearls and grandmother's gold bracelet to find my original wedding ring, a simple band Robert gave me when we were young and hopeful. I held it to the lamplight, reading the inscription, forever and always. Forever had lasted 42 years. Always ended when he chose Lila. Yet the good years, the love that was real, remained untarnished. I set the ring back with acceptance, closing that chapter without bitterness. My phone buzzed. A text from Ethan. Thank you for an incredible Thanksgiving, Mom. Clara and I are so grateful for you. I replied, thank you for becoming the man I always knew you'd be. Rest well. Another message from Clara. I never had a mother who believed in me like you do. Thank you for showing me true strength. Tears pricked my eyes. At 64, I was learning life's greatest gifts come in the second act, when you know your worth and demand nothing less. The house settled with familiar creaks, a testament to its endurance. My grandmother raised her family here through the Depression. My mother kept it a haven during wartime. I was part of a lineage of resilient women who guarded what mattered. Lila tried to break that chain, but only forged it stronger. Tomorrow, I'd plan the refuge, transforming the condo, Lila's supposed victory, into a beacon for others. Next month, I'd help Ethan and Clara plan their garden wedding, where my grandparents married 80 years ago. Tonight, I was simply grateful for survival, for clarity, for knowing it's never too late to discover your strength when falsehoods fall away. Outside, the November wind stirred the oak Robert and I planted on our 10th anniversary. It had weathered storms, droughts, and time, bending but never breaking. Like me, it stood tall, ready to bloom again in spring. I'd love to hear from you, dear reader. What would you do in my place? Have you faced betrayal and found strength? Share below, and check out 2 other stories on my channel that will surprise you. Thank you for joining me on this journey.